Discoveries that restore destiny. Discoveries that restore destiny. You know, this was the official Back to Church Sunday, and what happens a lot of times when folks go away from church, they go away from God. They go away because things have gone bad. You know, people stop praying when they feel like God doesn't answer their prayers anyways. People stop going to church when they feel like they're not getting anything out of it. See, and it's all working the system backwards. You don't go to church just to get something out of it. You go to church to give God some worship and some honor and some obedience and give Him that spot of priority and preference in your life. And when you do that, you will get something out of it. But see, it just doesn't work the way you think it ought to work. And so we do this foolish thing that we walk up to God's wood stove and say, you know, when you give me some heat, I'll give you some wood. But that's not how it works. You got to come to Him first. You got to invest in Him first. Okay? Now, I could go into a teaching and explain to you why that is. So if you want to know, see me later, I'll explain to you why it is the way that it is. The world doesn't understand. A lot of the church doesn't understand why God can't just legally do what He wants to do in the earth. But there is a legitimate Bible reason why it works the way it works, and we have to come to Him and ask Him in order to receive. We have to come and invest in His kingdom in order to receive the harvest and reward from His kingdom. But a lot of people, they have gone away. And in Luke chapter 15, there is this story about a guy who, you know, kind of gave up on how things were at his father's house, and he went away because he was discouraged and he was down and out, and he was upset with the way things were in his life. And see, he didn't know a lot of stuff about what was going on, and so he thought that what I need is more stuff. I need more stuff. And so he goes to his father and he asks for stuff, and his father gives him stuff, but stuff wasn't enough. And so before long he said, well, I got the stuff. Maybe it wasn't what I needed, the stuff, but maybe I just need to get away from the people I've been hanging out with. And so he left the people he was with. And this happens a lot of times. People leave churches, they leave families, they leave husbands, they leave wives, they leave jobs, trying to find what they can't find any other way. And they don't realize that the problem is an inside problem, not an outside problem. Your circumstances are not your biggest problem. They may be a problem. They may be uncomfortable. They may be dangerous. They may be difficult for the time, but they are not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is how we are on the inside. And so this happens that, you know, while we've got God who provided all that we need for life and godliness, we have open access. You know, the call for us is whosoever will, let him come. You know, that is like a blank check from heaven. That is saying that you can have all of God, you can fellowship with Him, you can have relationship with Him, you can receive from Him, whatever it is, but you just got to be willing to come. You know, there is healing for people. We were singing about how God's presence is in the house. And, you know, people in the New Testament, you get to see it when people realize, and not all the people, but some people realized that Jesus was near enough that He would hear them. Oh, they cried out, Son of David, have mercy on me. People said, shut up, sit down, be quiet. Nobody wants to hear you. But He didn't listen to them because He knew Jesus was close enough to hear Him. So He just called out louder. And there were other folks who realized Jesus was in the house, and there were people blocking the way. There were religious people blocking the way. And yet they said, I'm not going to let anything or anybody stop me. I'm going to tear up what I got to tear up. I'm going to climb up what I got to climb up. I'm going to let down what I got to let down. But I am going to get what I came here to get. See, we got an open invitation for whosoever will. Let him come. Somebody ought to come. get what God's given. Somebody ought to come and receive what God's offering. It's a whosoever will thing. But see, a lot of folks, they lack the will. They lack the will to do it. And it's because a lot of times we are confused about it. We have the idea, well, if God wants to do it, God will do it. No, God's not your problem. He's not holding out on you. He's waiting on you to get tired of pig slop. He's waiting on you to get tired of lack. He's waiting on you to get tired of loneliness. He's waiting on you to realize and come to your senses and come to Him. Now, that is the story that we're looking at today. And I used the wrong word. It's not story. This is history. Because in this, Jesus does not say this is a parable. He says a certain man had two sons. You got Luke chapter 15? Look at verse 11 with me. A certain man had two sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falls to me. And he divided unto them his living. And not many days after, the younger son gathered all together and took his journey into a far country, and there wasted his substance with riotous living. And when he had spent all, there arose a mighty famine in the land, and he began to be in want. And he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into the fields to feed swine. And he would fain have filled his belly with the husk that the swine did eat, and no man gave unto him. And when he came to himself, modern translations say when he came to his senses, he said, how many hired servants of my father's have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and will say unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you, and am no more worthy to be called your son. Make me as one of the hired servants. And he arose and came to his father. But when he was yet a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion, and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. And the son said to the father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight, and am no more worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, bring forth the best robe and put it on him, put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found, and they began to be merry. Now, we'll stop right there. There's some more good stuff in here, and I'm probably going to follow it up next week, just so you know. So you may want to read through this and think about it, become prepared and primed and ready to get more out of it. But I realize that here is this man who is in position, this young man is in position to have a great life, a great future. He's in position to inherit the family's system, whatever it was. See, I don't know what this man did for a living, but apparently what he was doing was working. Right? He was a successful man. He had stuff. That's why when the son came and said, give me my inheritance, the father had something to give him. See, there are some things that we're doing that aren't producing anything. And we don't have anything to give. When people come looking for bread, looking for help, a lot of times we are empty because what we're doing is not working. It's not producing. And so we may need to look at that, because this father was doing something that was working, and that gave this son a potential destiny to be successful and have a great life. But see, he thought, I need something. He did not know that he had everything. See, and when you are broken on the inside, here's what you need to understand. Nothing will satisfy you. It is one of my favorite illustrations, and I know several of you have heard it many times, but somebody hadn't heard it, and if you have, I still like to say it, so you'll just have to put up with it. One of my favorite illustrations is the man who went to the doctor, and he said, Doctor, I'm messed up. I need some help. I'm dying. The doctor said, well, tell me what's wrong. Why do you think you're dying? He said, well, everything hurts. He said, when I touch my head, it hurts. And when I touch my chest, it hurts. And when I touch my arm, it hurts. Everything hurts, Doc. I'm dying. And the doctor said, well, let me examine you. And he examined him. He came into the room after the examination, and he said, Well, I got good news and bad news. He said, the good news is you're not dying. The bad news is you got a broke finger. Do you understand the concept that when your feeler is broken, nothing worse? When you are broken and everything you come against rubs you the wrong way. Everything you touch leaves you hurting, leaves you lacking. That's where this man was. He did not know what he had. And so he left it. And a lot of us, we leave God. We leave off following Him. We leave off living with Him. We leave off enjoying His fellowship and His benefits because we are uncomfortable because of what's wrong with us on the inside. And we blame it on Him. We say, He don't answer my prayers like He's supposed to. He don't come through for me when He's supposed to. He doesn't do what I want Him to do. And we walk away. But it's not Him, it's us. And so this young man, he left it all, but he came back. And I like that because it's good to know that you can come back. It's good to know that as long as you're breathing, there is a chance for you to get restoration. As long as you are alive and on planet Earth, there is a chance for you to get back to your destiny. Deborah and I were watching a little football last night, and it came fourth quarter time, and I remembered what it meant. When they hold up the four fingers and you are behind on the scoreboard, you're losing. It means this thing ain't over yet. There's still time for us to turn it around. I want you to know today that because you are here and you are alive, no matter how far you've fallen, no matter how far you've wandered, no matter how far you are behind on the scoreboard, there is still time for you to turn it around. But you need to know some stuff first. So here's what happened. This young man, he went through a process of discovery, and I'm going to give you 5 things he discovered that caused him to recover his destiny. 5 things he discovered. He discovered, number 1, that he had believed a lie. The lie was that other people are my problem. The lie was that stuff will make me happy and satisfy me. The lie was that if I can't be happy over here, I need to go over here. Those are lies that the enemy tells people when they are misaligned with the God. They are lies that the enemy tells people when they are looking to the wrong things to find what they're looking for. The enemy will tell you if you just had that woman, or if you just had that man, or if you just had that car, or if you just had that vacation house, if you just had this or that or the other thing. And yet you need to know that nothing will ever satisfy you short of God Himself, because He made you for Himself. You say, well, that ain't fair that He'd make me that way. Well, you have to take that up with Him. He doesn't recommend it, though, that the thing made, saying, why did you make me this way? He's God. And ultimately, He can do anything He wants to. So just be glad He made you. You know, I remember, you know, mom had five children. And it just looked like a lot. You know, I wasn't brave enough to have 5. We had 1 and stopped. That was a choice. And so, you know, my question for her was, well, why did you have 5 children? She said, well, where do you think I should have stopped? So, you know, while I didn't understand the methodology or the thinking that was going on her part, I'm sure glad she created me. Well, see, that's the thing with God. He created you because He's got something good for you. In fact, you need to understand this about you. There is not anything wrong with you. What is wrong is how you use what God gave you. You got a sense of humor. God likes that. He can use that. You got a stubborn streak. I know where to use it. Okay? Everything. You got a temper even. God can use that. What you got to learn is that He created you, and everything He created about you is designed for His glory. And when you learn how to use it for His glory, it'll be glorious for you. But as long as you believe the lie that I got to get farther away, I'm going to find my destiny, I'm going to find my joy, my fun, my fulfillment away from God, because I've been over here living at the Father's house and it just ain't working for me. See, he had to discover that he had believed a lie. Have you believed a lie? I started preparation for this week with an Old Testament account of a prophet that God sent to one of Israel's kings. Israel's king had led the people off into sin, and they were just doing horrible things. And God sent a prophet down to the king and said, I want you to go in one way and go out another, and I don't want you to eat or drink anything while you're down there. And this guy goes down, and God backs up his word, and there's a miracle. And there was another prophet in town who well, he used to be a prophet, which is a whole nother message that we don't got time to get into. I'll get that for you later. But there was this other guy down there who used to be a prophet, and he remembered what it was like when God moved on him. And he went and he found that original prophet, and he lied to him. He said, God told me to tell you to come to my house and eat with me. See, he wanted to hang out in fellowship with the man who had the presence. Can I tell you that when you are a person of the presence of God, that people will be drawn to you? And some of them will be drawn to you for wrong reasons. And they will lie to you and manipulate you to try to suck all the good out of you. But you just need to stick with what God said to you. You need to keep doing what God told you to do. You don't need to let somebody get you off course, because that's what happened to this guy. He let somebody get him off course. He caused him to abandon what God said for what somebody said God said, and he ended up getting eaten by a lion. It's a bad story. It worked out bad for that man of God because his believing got messed up. See, when you believe a lie, you're on dangerous ground. When you believe a lie, you'll find yourself going the wrong direction. When you believe the lie, you'll find yourself abandoning the best things in your life. So you got to search out. Is what I believe the truth? Is how I'm living, is that based on what God really said, or is that based on what somebody told me God said? Is that what really God has said to me, or is that just something that I've come up with on my own? You know, a lot of people come up with what God said on their own. I can help you with that. The key to it is this: whatever God really says to you will be matched in the Word. See, God don't tell you to do something that the Word tells you not to do. He just doesn't work that way. I was listening to the radio this week, and this guy was doing a segment on Janet Parshall's radio program on Moody Broadcasting, and it was, I think, the top 10 stupid reasons people leave their spouse. And one of the list of reasons was God told me to. No. He doesn't do that. No. That's not the way this works. So this first guy, he believed a lie, and that's what got him off course to begin with. He believed a lie. So you got to discover that. If you're believing a lie, if you're unsure, if what you're doing is not working, if instead of getting closer to your destiny, instead of getting closer to God, you are actually getting farther away. Instead of being more enthused about God's stuff and going to God's house and reading God's Word and talking about God to other people. See, if you're drifting away, it means you've probably believed a lie. That there's something better, or it's okay for me to go away from Him for what I want to do over here. So that was the first thing. He discovered he believed a lie. Number two, he discovered he did not have to live as low as he ended up living. See, here's the problem with lying. Lies that we believe lead us to destitution. Lies lead to destitution. When you believe a lie, when you buy the lie of the enemy that, well, you know, if you drink this, you'll be good. And if you have this, you'll be successful. And all of the lies that the enemy would tell you lead you to low-level living. Okay? And so when you believe that, that's where you end up. And that's what happened to this guy. I read it to you a minute ago, how he gets over there, and he's doing his thing. He's doing just what he wants to do. He's got everything he asked for, and it got him messed up. You know, I happen to know that sometimes God is slow about answering people's prayers because the things we ask for will mess us up. Before you get mad at God for not answering your prayer, you ought to consider that He knows more than you know. You ought to consider that He knows that if you had that lottery winning, you might abandon Him. And He ain't going to help you with that. He might know that if you move to that job or position that you want, that it might put you in association with somebody that's going to lead you astray. What you need to do all the time is trust that God is working all things for your good. And so if you get the job or you don't get the job, you ought to just give Him praise. Right? When it looks like things are going right and when it looks like things are going wrong, you ought to just give Him praise. Because He's God and He's good. And His goal is to be good to us. So the lie says, no, God's holding out on us. But you got to discover if you're believing a lie, and you got to turn that around, because lies lead to low-level living, and that's where this guy found himself. He used all his money, and you know, he went away like this. He went away to find himself, and here's how he found himself. He found himself alone and broke and hurting and miserable. That's how you find yourself when you try to find yourself apart from God. So he got down there, and he had the discovery. He had an aha moment while he's down in there, and he said, you know what? I don't have to live like this. And it says in verse 17, he came to himself, and he said, how many hired servants of my father's have bread enough to spare, and here I am, hungry and dying. There's something wrong with this picture. Do you ever look at your life and think, there is something wrong with this picture? I am not supposed to be living like this. My life is supposed to be better than this. My conditions are supposed to be better than this. You need to discover that you do not have to live the way you are living. If it's not lining up with God's promises for you, it just means there's some work for you to do. There's some movements you need to make. You need to climb up. You need to press toward Him. You need to learn about Him and listen to Him and spend time with Him. And He'll help you come up in your living. But you need to discover first that you aren't made for low-level living. That's not how you have to do it. And so he came to himself. He came to his senses. And I like that translation that says he came to his senses. Because, you know, it just don't make any sense to leave a perfectly good house where you got supply and you got servants and you got a father that loves you. It just don't make any sense to leave that and run away. So he came to his senses and realized, I don't have to live like this. Number 3, he discovered he couldn't make it on his own. That's a good discovery. What it says there in verse 17, he came to himself and said, how many of my hired servants, my father's hired servants have bread enough to spare, and I perish with hunger? He is realizing in that statement, I'm not able to take care of myself. I'm not able to make enough to take care of me. I'm not able to do enough to take care of me. My father, he's able to take care of himself and his whole house and his servants. And yet here I am doing everything I know to do, and nothing is working out. And he realized, he discovered, I can't make it on my own. You know, that's the discovery that brought me to salvation. I've told many of you this, how that in my church experience as a child, you know, I went to the altar scared and crying many times because, you know, they threatened me with Jesus coming and hell being hot. And so, you know, that would move me and motivate me, but it didn't help me get saved. It just helped me be afraid. And then they would also spend time teaching and talking about, and they're legitimate Bible things. They just they didn't translate right for me. That you know, if you keep coming to God and then sinning and going back, that God will just get tired of you and decide that's enough. You can't come no more. And so I thought I became one of those people. And so there was a phase in life when I just didn't really care about any of that stuff, because I wasn't afraid of going to hell anymore, because I thought I was already doomed to go. You know, when there's no danger because you've already messed up, you think there's no point in trying. And the devil will feed that for you. He'll feed that and push you into that way of thinking and tell you, well, you know, you already messed up. You may as well go on. You already slipped and fell. You may as well just go on and enjoy yourself now. He'll push you that way. But you need to know that God's mercies are new every morning. God's mercies are new every morning. If you keep coming back to Him to get forgiveness, He'll keep doling out forgiveness for you. Now, it damages you to keep going on that way. It hurts you. It makes you less sensitive to Him. And you can do that so much that you no longer hear Him calling you back. But as long as you come back, He will receive you, because His mercies are new every morning. That means mercy, I've told you this before, but let me make sure you got it. His mercy is what you need when you blow it. He told us His mercies are new every morning so that you would know you can blow it every day and God will still be merciful to you if you'll repent and come back to Him. But you just got to realize that you can't make it on your own. You can't succeed on your own. You may build a financial portfolio. You may have a family. You may have fame and fortune. But yet it'll still be empty and hollow, and it will not satisfy you. See, I don't know if I believe that. Well, just look at Hollywood news. It's not hard to figure out. People with all the money and all the position and all the fame and all the people who want to know them and be around them, and yet they are absolutely miserable. Why? Because they're missing the one most important thing. See, you just can't do it by yourself. You can't find fulfillment by yourself. And so he realized in this discovery, I cannot succeed on my own. He knew, I'm in the shape I'm in because of the choices that I made. I'm in the mess I'm in because I can't do enough to get out of the mess I'm in. And so he had discovery number 4. Discovery number 4 is he discovered he had to take responsibility for his own life and his own future. He had to take responsibility. He did it when he said in verse 18, I'll arise and I will go to my Father and I will say to my Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. That's responsibility. That's realizing it's not my daddy's fault or my mama's fault. It's not my neighbor's fault or the president's fault. It's my fault. The mess I'm in is my fault. The sin I'm in is my fault. The lack I'm in is my fault. The mess I made out of things is my fault. See, and so I came to that place where I realized, you know what? I've just made such a mess out of myself that when I actually went to the Lord to get saved, what I was asking Him to do was save me from myself. Because at that point I realized I didn't have anybody to blame. I didn't have anybody I could shove the responsibility on. I had discovered that it was me that was the problem. And when I knew that it was me that was the problem, I also knew it was me that had to make a move in the right direction. And that was when I slid out of my bed and got on my knees and called on Jesus. Not because I was afraid of going to hell, not because I was afraid of missing the rapture, but because I knew I was broken and only He could fix me. I had a discovery. Can't succeed on my own. I took responsibility, and that night I said and meant it. Jesus, I'm a broken, messed up sinner, and I can't help myself. But they told me you would help me. if I would believe on you. And so I made a choice to believe on Jesus. I made a choice to believe all that stuff they'd said about him, that he was the Son of God, that he came and lived and died for me. I took responsibility for my future, and I called on the name of the Lord. This young man discovered he had to take responsibility for his own life. And when he did, well, he made discovery number 5, which is the place where a lot of people foul it up. Discovery number 5 is he discovered that the time to move was now. The time to start is now. And so here's what he did. He realized it's my responsibility. And in the very next verse, verse 20, it says, and he arose and came to his father. There's no time that passed in the middle of that. You know, this is just like, man, I get it. I know what I need to do. I know what I'm going to do. I know who has to do it. Now I'm just going to go do it. See, one of the things I know is that a lot of people listening to what we preach and what we teach, and not just here, but other churches where the gospel's being preached, there are people every week who make decisions. They hear what the Word says. They hear about the goodness of God, and they decide, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be better, and I'm going to do the right things. They make decisions, but then they don't do anything with their decision. And it just remains a thought in their heads, an intention maybe of their hearts, because they haven't made the most important discovery of all. The time to get up and go is when you hear him say, come. The time to get moving is when you realize what you need to be doing. It's not time to just sit on it and think about it. It's time to get up and go. And so this young man discovered the time to do this is now. He knew if I keep waiting, I could starve to death out here. If I keep waiting, I could get in too big a mess that I can't find my way out of this. And so when he realized, here's where I need to go, here's what I need to do, I'm going to get up and do it, he got up and went. And that's what I would encourage you to do. It's not hard to know that tons of us as believers are living below our destiny. We're living low, lower than we're made for. You know, it's almost frustrating to me. I see believers that, you know, they're supposed to be believers. I don't know. You don't really know what's in somebody's heart. But, you know, they're supposed to be believers, and yet they run around complaining all the time. And when you talk to them, they say, it's a hard old way. It's just, and they got no joy, and they got no peace. All they seem to have is misery, you know. And if you got God on the inside and that's the way you're living, your God must be made of 98% lemon juice. Because you got to on your face. Yet I found that there's joy in salvation. I found that there's peace in knowing Jesus. I found that there's strength that comes from him when my strength has expired. I found that there's a storm calmer and a load lifter. And I've done what so many others have done. I have spent time wallowing in the pit, wallowing in the mess, knowing full what I ought to do, but I hadn't made the right discovery yet. The final discovery is the most important one. It is the one that says, you know what? I need to stop thinking about this, and I need to get up and go. I need to stop talking about this, and I need to get up and move. I need to stop wishing things were better and get up and start going toward the one who makes them better. I need to do it, and I need to do it right now. When you get that, when you know that, that's the time to get up and move. So I just would tell you today, whatever God has been talking to you about and whatever decision you've made about changing your future and changing your destiny and changing your relationship with God from being maybe mediocre and cool and not really on fire and not really fixed on Him. But, you know, I was, when Deborah and I married, I was a Christian. I got born again before we got married. But then I became a casual Christian. So I wasn't living in the Father's house as much as I was just living in the neighborhood. You know what I mean? I was just in the neighborhood. But, now I hold on tight. I like being close to him. When I figured some things out, I discovered some things about not being able to find satisfaction in any other person but him. I started holding on tight. And when I realized that, as hard as I try to make my way and make my way prosperous, I just can't never do enough. And so now I just look to him. And I wait on him. And I trust in him. And he gives me peace. But see, I've been in that low spot too, and it still gets there from time to time. I'm not trying to tell you I am a finished product. I got a ways to go, honey. But I'm going. I'm going. Somebody just this week criticized me for where I am on the journey. But, I didn't say it back to them, but I thought, well, at least I'm going. See, all I was to them was another thing they were trying to use as some lame excuse for why they wasn't doing any better. You Christians, you all alike. Judgmental. Holier than thou. Think you all high and mighty. That's all just a crock of baloney. Y'all know what I mean by that? That's just lies we tell ourselves trying to feel better about ourselves and our sin and our shame and our guilt. No. When you find yourself living low, you need to make a discovery that I can change and I can start today. I can start now, and that's the best time to start.